Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field, will guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to Toy Business Unboxed. Today, we're excited to introduce Parker Lynch, the CEO of Hedgehog, a pioneer in education, technology, and wellness for children with ASD and ADHD. With a rich background in education and special education especially, Parker is reshaping how we support learning and development through innovative play. In today's episode, we'll dive into intersections of toy design and educational technology, uncovering how toys can actually make a difference in the life of the children with developmental disabilities. And please join us as we explore the future of play with Parker. And thank you so much, Parker, for having you on the show today.
Thank you, Jason, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, and this is actually my really passion topic of mine, because with a few businesses that we operate, special education is huge. And as some of the audience that's listening or watching us, my background, my oldest son have autism and ADHD. So special education has been a huge part of my life. And also myself, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was an adult, which unfortunately is really common for adults to get a diagnosis once they are much older, because I think the school just doesn't provide enough resource on that. So I want to start off today's interview talking about your own journey in special education and funding Hedgehog, which is truly inspiring. So if you want to share with the audience on how your experience has been and kind of start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll do an abridged version of my background and how it led me to Hedgehog. So I changed careers. I used to do search engine optimization, meaning I was behind the computer. Didn't love that. My parents have always been pushing me to be a teacher, and I resisted for a long time. Finally, the economy got really bad in 2007, especially in Detroit, where I live. And I ended up just taking a big chance and moving to Thailand. And I got lucky enough to be hired by the school called Wells International School. And I taught kindergarten there at an international school. And it was great. It really made me expand my mind. And they didn't have a huge budget and fancy materials in the school. So it was a lot of gamifying education, creating educational games and everything like that. So that really hooked me. I loved teaching. I loved being creative and trying to find creative ways to make learning more fun. So that really started me on a path of where I am today. And then after teaching there for a couple of years, I realized I wanted to further my education. I ended up being lucky enough to go to NYU to get my master's degree. And that was a fantastic experience. At NYU, they really move you around a lot to experience. Their student teaching program is great. Moved around to a few different schools around Harlem and the Bronx and Manhattan. And I just saw a lot of different learners, a lot of different tech in the classroom, which I've also been super interested in, and how people learn differently and how some of this tech can support it. But yeah, basically the thing that led me to create the Hoglet is a story I like to tell. It was really my first job after graduating at NYU. I worked at a prep school, and I was shadowing a student. I could tell just from my experience that he was probably on the spectrum somewhere. He had a Fidget device and needed to bring it with him, and he wasn't able to bring it into the computer lab. He ended up having a meltdown, unfortunately. And the first thing I did after that, after the school day was over, I went home. I looked online. I was like, I'm going to buy him a Fidget computer mouse. And there was no such thing. I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet. So for me,
you don't mind showing the audience, for those of you that are watching,
because
Parker have a really interesting and it's hard to describe. So for those of you that are listening on the podcast, please watch the episode from our YouTube channel as well. But for the listener, can you also describe the device to the listeners if they couldn't see it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is called the Hoglet. It's the world's first Fidget computer mouse. Inside the box, when you order this, you get everything. You get batteries, you get the connection to the computer, you get the mouse. A lot of people think it's just the cover. It's the entire thing. So this cover is removable. As you can see, super easy to remove. A lot of thought went into the design of this mouse. It feels really great in your hand. It's really good for fidgeting. It's a silent fidget. It's a functional fidget. So while you're on the computer or students on the computer, they can quietly fidget with this. It makes little to no noise. It's made of food grade silicone, and it's just really easy to connect. And that's why, like, when I created this, I wanted something that would not be distracting, but at the same time, it's colorful and light. It livens up the normal drab computer lab, or even a lot of adults have been purchasing this as well. I'm also like you, Jason. I have ADHD, and I was diagnosed late in life. So I use my Hoglet every day. And now we've even developed more products. Like we have this, the Fidget keychain here.
Yeah, I actually have one in my key as well.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah, this little guy is my companion. I have it always in my pocket. Social situations, I do get anxiety at times, and it's great to have in your pocket so I can fidget while I'm talking to someone. And it really, there's a lot of studies that have been done that show some certain people need to fidget to focus. It increases your focus capability. So for me, that's what I found. I'm that type of learner. So when I created this product, I wanted my products to speak to that learner who needs something tactile to help them remain grounded and focused. So that's what we specialize in, creating products that are tactile, useful, can be discreet, don't make a ton of noise, and they're like super easy to clean, super durable. You can't wear these things out. Yeah. So that's what we're focused on at Hedgehog.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the product. And I know you'll have a few more product idea in the future that you're going to launch. And I think a lot of the learner is going to definitely benefit from it. So I want to kind of transition talking about, this is more for a listener that's looking into launching a product like you did. And I know you had a lot of success when you launched the product on Kickstarter, which of course, Kickstarter is a whole different platform. But can you walk the listeners through the challenges and some of the success that you have experienced during the Kickstarter campaign, and how does that shape the whole trajectory of Hedgehog as a company?
Yeah. First off, if you have an idea and you think it's a good idea, I really encourage you to pursue that. I've had many ideas in my life. Some were great, and I just slacked on it. I didn't go ahead and try to make it happen. And basically an iteration of that idea ended up coming to market, and I was kicking myself. Yeah. And if I can do it, anyone can. The great thing about Kickstarter, it's not easy, but the great thing about Kickstarter is anyone can do it. You can start with essentially little to no money and raise enough money to make your dreams a reality. And in that case, that's what we're able to do. The first thing that I suggest that you do is, if you have a great idea you want to perhaps bring to market, is number one, talk to people that you confide in and bounce the idea off them. Let them know, please give your honest opinion. I made a lot of different prototypes, actually, getting people's hands. As I said, a lot of thought went into the texture of it. So we did a bunch of tests with people of all ages to see what people really liked. So it's not like we just rushed it to market. And with the Kickstarter, it's awesome because, as I said, costs not much money. It's really like word of mouth is how we started to amp up our campaign. I put it all over my social media. I really encouraged all my friends to tell their friends.
What was the total amount you were able to raise at the end? I know you raised quite a bit of amount just from Kickstarter.
Yeah, good question. So I found, like, basically through my research, I was like, okay, in order to create a line of these products, like, I'll have to at least raise $65,000. So that was our goal, is $65K in 30 days. We ended up raising just about $75,000 in 30 days. So we surpassed our goal, which is awesome. There definitely were a lot of times where you're like crossing your fingers, hoping it's going to happen. There were a lot of tense moments. You're looking at the calendar and just like counting down the days. But luckily for us, we were able to get there, and just with a combination of really trying to get the word out, pounding the pavement, it's easy nowadays to create your own PR release, trying to basically like just contacting local. This is during COVID too, I should add. So like when we were running this Kickstarter, a lot of people were at their computers often because what else was there to do during COVID? And I think we also benefited because the news cycle was like, it's always the doom and gloom, right? But especially during COVID, it was just like people wanted to hear something good. And so we reached out to all the local news stations. We ended up getting carried by a bunch and also getting in the Detroit news and everything like that. So that boosted us big time. So the one thing that I would caution about Kickstarter or any of these crowdfunding websites is a niche industry where you should do some research before you enter into it. It is not just simply, if you're great at marketing, it may not necessarily translate exactly to Kickstarting marketing. So like there's a whole cottage industry for that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a certain type of buyer that tend to buy more often on Kickstarter than other platforms. Usually, based on my experience, it's people that's a little bit more techy, that's always looking for the latest and the greatest gadgets, so to speak. And your product is definitely one of the very trendy kind of a gadget that the people would love to try.
Yeah. If you have kind of a product that doesn't have many competitors, I definitely encourage a crowdfunding type of thing like Kickstarter, because like you said, they're like nerdy people like myself check out Kickstarter and they want to get the deal. They want to have like the newest products and also get it for cheap. And that's like if you got in early, you were able to get the best deal on the Hoglet and also maybe get a hat and some other stuff.
I find a lot of successful campaign is usually either some kind of like latest technology, like innovation product, or a lot of board game actually raise a lot of money on Kickstarter as well. Like board game is like a big kind of category in that crowdfunding space. And actually that would be one of the upcoming episodes. I would love to interview someone that raised a lot of money using board game with Kickstarter, which is a whole different kind of marketing. And with our in-house brand, Lucky Kid, we also try to do Kickstarter with crowdfunding, but I think our product is a little bit more niche. It was like a writable weighted lap pad. We end up raise about $10,000 at the end for that particular campaign, but I totally understand how much work it was behind that campaign, because I remember spending hours and hours getting everything ready and get everything uploaded and talking to all the backers and make sure all the product get delivered on time. It is a lot of work. So
yeah. One of the things that you just mentioned struck a chord with me is that communication with the backers is huge, especially during that time. It was, again, I mentioned during COVID, we also, I was totally thrust into this new industry where, okay, now I have to figure out how to manufacture this and all that stuff. So on top of all of that, there was the supply chain crisis. So everything was super delayed. So I had to really be clear with some of my audience who I can't really assume that they all are clued in with the news about shipping and the containers that are sitting off the coast of California. So I was very clear. I sent them, here's an article expanding on what we're dealing with right now. So luckily all the supporters they've been awesome. They continue to support Hedgehog. We have a really good core of fans and everything. So everyone out there listening from Hedgehog, thanks from the bottom of my heart for staying with us from the beginning, trusting us that we're going to deliver on our promises. And that's one thing that we've done. So super excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much about sharing your experience. So I want to kind of transition to the next kind of sections. So after your successful raise with Kickstarter, I think you're also looking into launching your product yourself, Amazon. How was your experience dealing with the Amazon platform yourself?
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's something that I thought would be very easy. I thought I consider myself to be with it, fairly smart. So I was like, I can figure this out. I'm tech savvy and went on Amazon, tried to list. I followed the instructions, I thought, to a T. And I was like, yeah, this will be up and running in no time and I'll be able to figure it out. That was not the case, unfortunately. My listing was suppressed for various reasons. I have to say Amazon, and Jason knows this better than I, Amazon is particular with certain things, and they will like, unfortunately for us right now, actually two of the colors of Hoglets are, you can't buy them right now because they've been suppressed for some strange reason. But yeah, there's a variety of things that happen. And luckily, I actually, since I've gotten advice from Jason for about 4 years. I was luckily put in touch by a mutual friend named Brian. And so I knew that Jason had experience, and we actually worked with Jason's team, Seller Fuel, and they ended up like really quickly being able to get our products actually set up properly. Like the page looked beautiful. It didn't look anything like my cobbled together, really messy page that I created. They did it like very professionally, and also they made it work for us. So thankfully, Seller Fuel came in and saved the day for us, and it's been great working with Seller Fuel this whole time.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And I think the thing with Amazon is just it become more and more complicated over the year. When I first started back in 2016, it wasn't as many different options. When you go into Amazon, go back to the Seller Central backend, now there's like hundreds of options of the stuff you can do. And just on advertising alone, over the year, they also introduced more and more advertising options. Before it was mainly like sponsored product. Now you have sponsored product, you have sponsored brand, you have sponsored display. Then you have 10 different targeting options, 10 different settings you can do in the backend. So it tend to get very overwhelming, especially for the entrepreneur that's new to the platform. But thank you for mentioning that. But what other things that make you consider when you are working with like an agency like us versus doing it on your own with your in-house team?
Yeah, it's as an entrepreneur, and many entrepreneurs out there who are listening, they know what I'm talking about. You have so much going on. Like you have so many things to worry about. Like you're worried about making sure your product is quality. You're worried about the financials, making sure you can live day to day here. There's so many other things on your plate. You know, if you have employees as well, like trying to make sure that you have you're hiring the right employees and that they're doing the correct things. There's just a myriad, like an endless list of things to do every day. So having Amazon and like the intricacies of Amazon also added to your day is, for me, it was just like, I can't do this. I don't have the time, and it's driving me absolutely insane. So that was like a saving grace. Because to have Seller Fuel jump in and something like, I don't have to worry about it anymore, because Seller Fuel would let me know, okay, we need this and this, and then boom, they're on it and they take care of it. So I really strongly advise people to, like, if you want to try it on your own, go ahead. But I will warn you that I'm sure it hasn't gotten any easier since I tried about 3 years ago to set up my own Amazon page. Just random things like trip, and Jason, again, you know better than I do, but like certain words you may use, which you wouldn't think would stifle your page, end up like totally shutting everything down. And it's so hard to get it back up. And Amazon's such a huge company that, like, to be honest with you, it's like hard to get great customer service through there. Like I don't want to talk poorly about Amazon, but like it is really hard to get an actual person who can walk you through steps.
Unfortunately, that is the reality when we are working with Amazon, because we're in their sandbox, and sometimes we are at the mercy of their customer support and the level that we can get just to troubleshooting like one simple issue, like a listing suppression. Sometimes take weeks, if not months, just to get that one issue resolved. So it tends to be frustrating, and having someone to offload that kind of task to is definitely going to help or open up the bandwidth for the entrepreneur. For the next session of today's interview, I want to kind of transition back to a little bit more about your background, which is in education and special education and EdTech. What kind of trend do you foresee in the intersections of between technology and education, especially for the individual with learning differences? Do you have any trend that you're seeing based on your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So yeah, one of the things I harken back to is back at NYU, almost every single class, they really hammer this into you, is teaching to all the senses. Like your lesson plan as a teacher should really involve a visual learner, an auditory learner, kinesthetic. You have to think about all these learners because you're not going to have an entire classroom of kids who learn the same way. I would argue every single person learns and uniquely. I think companies are starting to see this. They're hearing the pleas of teachers, the pleas of parents that we want some solutions for our children who are unique learners. So that's what we're trying to do at Hedgehog. One huge trend I've seen also is actually I met with a company, very cool new company called Immerse, which is they're creating some cool products that help with this is the flow of communication between the learning institution, the teacher as well, and then and the child. That is one thing that when I was a teacher, I was constantly frustrated by this because if you're a homeroom, like any teachers listening would probably resonate with this comment is I'd be a homeroom teacher and have a student who would go off, let's say for science class and they'd come back and I don't really know what happened in that classroom. I don't know how they're doing overall. It's just really tough as a teacher too. Like you have so much on your plate. It is hard to let all the different teachers of different subjects know, how Johnny did in this class versus this class on a day to day. Usually all that stuff is learned at the end of the semester and maybe it's like too late. Maybe some actions could have been taken to improve results. So that's a new trend as well. It's not really a new trend, but I think it's something that technology can really help with is facilitating the communication breakdown as the flow goes from like top to bottom to the student.
Thank you for mentioning that. And also, I know you have a lot of deep connection in your local area, Detroit, through some of your involvement with different foundations. And how do you envision the role of the business like Hedgehog in contributing back to the communities, especially the local communities?
Yeah, so with Hedgehog, first off, I should shout out my nonprofit that I run, and we have a meeting this evening to talk about like the upcoming year here. But I run a nonprofit called Born and Raised Detroit Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we're 100% volunteer. And we've given over $1 million to youth programs in Detroit. So that's been a really cool thing to be a part of. Started this about 13 years ago. But to answer your question about Hedgehog and how we can assist the community, I have one great example actually. In Detroit, we have Ally Bank. I believe they're nationwide, and they actually invited me to come speak about neurodiversity in the workplace. So really had an awesome time going to the office, fielding a bunch of questions, talking about Hedgehog. And after that, they ended up purchasing a bunch of Hoglets for their workplace because they realized that they had, so they're catering to unique learners in the workplace. I think it's something that's super important that you're adapting to the worker and you're trying to make their life a little bit easier. Work is tough. Days are long. If there's any way that you can accommodate different learners in the workplace, I think that's something that if you're a CEO of any sort of a company, that's something that you want to address for sure. And I know with the Hoglet too, part of our Kickstarter, actually, we ended up raising a good amount of money to basically fund Hoglets going into a couple of charter schools locally in Detroit. So all the kids ended up having, we effectively were able to give away about 200 Hoglets to a couple of schools in Detroit. So that was awesome too. So I try to merge as best I can without getting, I guess, overlapping too much Born and Raised Detroit with the work we do at Hedgehog, because I think we work with the youth with Born and Raised, and the Hoglet, it's a product for people of all ages, but there are some definite overlap there, and we're always trying to make our community better with Hedgehog.
Yeah, and that's actually a great transition to my next question, because I know Hoglet is not just a product, but really a solution to a very unique challenge that you just mentioned. Can you share some of the success story or moments in your journey creating a product that truly have a positive impact with either families or the kids that is using your product?
Yeah, I have a bunch. I guess the first one that comes to mind is if you go to our YouTube page for Hedgehog Health, what our main video, our first video we ever created for our Kickstarter, I was lucky enough to meet a mom named Julia and her daughter Isabel, who was nonverbal on the autism spectrum. And this was all during COVID. I was lucky enough to have her allow a film crew into the house with a Hoglet and everything. So her daughter had never used a computer mouse before. And this is her first time ever using a mouse. She ends up loving it. And now she uses it all the time. So that was really cool to see. Basically, if you think about using a computer mouse, it is like a bit of a foreign thing from going from like an iPad to a laptop where you're actually manipulating things on the device. Going to a mouse, which is an appendage, right? It's something off to the side of a computer, but you're affecting things that are happening on the computer. So it can be a bit of a step, and especially for someone who is a unique learner. So it was really cool to see how easy it was for her to use it and understand how the mouse works. So that's one example that jumps to mind. Other really cool things is I was actually just in London for a show, the Bet UK EdTech show. And I had a couple of people come up to me that had different applications to my products that I had never really thought about before. For instance, for the keychain here, I had someone who he represents the prisons in the UK, and he wanted, they were interested in my products to give to some of their inmates who are actually in classrooms who have learning differences. So that was really cool. That's something I never, never considered that population as being a potential need for my product, as well as also his approach was from someone from the military there who, same thing. They have new cadets. These cadets have either diagnosed or undiagnosed learning differences, and they were interested in my products as well. So like those are really cool applications. We've also had people who have arthritis and use the Hoglet, and they say their arthritis is gone because of the fact that using the Hoglet every day, it really challenges you to actually move some muscles in your fingers that you normally wouldn't when you're just sitting there like death gripping your mouse during meetings and Zooms and everything. So that's been a really cool application as well that like
that's really cool.
Use for it. Yeah, a bunch of really cool things have come with it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those very cool and awesome story. So as well, winding down on today's interview today, the last question I usually ask all the guests is, if you had to share just one piece of advice with someone who is just getting started in the toys industry, what would that be?
Great question. I would say go for it. Obviously, think it through a lot. Bounce your idea off of trusted people. Like I said before, that was huge for me. My personal network of people who I really trust. And then I would say go for it. If your personal circle doesn't have enough knowledge, I did this as well as I went outside of that. I went to people who were in education and people who have dealt with toys, and you have them sign a non-disclosure agreement and bounce the idea off them, see what they think. Usually people are very kind and very open to give feedback, like both positive and negative. And I wouldn't let it hurt your feelings. Like I've heard a lot of both, right? You're going to get a lot of like negative stuff your way, but you develop really thick skin. But I think like number one, just go for it. There's so many, life is short. There's like very few opportunities that come at you. Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it. It's my number one piece of advice.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. And for the audience that's either listening or watching today's interview, what is the best way to find out more about it or connect with you?
Yes. So apologies for the dog barking here. But yeah, the best way to connect with me, and please do, if you have any questions or anything about products, or if you want some advice offline here, my website is www.hedgehoghealth.com. And so I could be contacted there. Also, our socials are at Hedgehog Health. So just Hedgehog Health and Instagram and Facebook. If you message any of those sites or socials, it'll come to me. And my name is Parker Lynch. Also, you can get to me at parker@hedgehoghealth.com. Happy to email you back and schedule a call or anything like that. Yeah, thank you, Jason, for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your story and experience with the audience. It was my honor to have you on as a guest. So for those of you that want to find out more about all the podcasts with the link, we'll publish all the link on our new website, toy-launch.com. That's the new website we're launching this year. And you will find all the show notes, all the resources, and all the kind of summary of today's podcast on that website here shortly. Thank you so much and we'll see you later.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
You've been listening to Toy Business Unboxed, hosted by Jason Shea. Thank you for joining us in exploring the fascinating world of toys and the ingenuity behind them. To stay updated with the latest episodes and continue your journey into the toy business, remember to subscribe and follow us. If you found today's episode insightful, please leave a rating and review and share this podcast with others who share your passion for toys. Until next time, stay curious and keep innovating.